In terms of students that I'm sure you work with a lot of students, some are great, maybe some aren't as driven. What are some of the commonalities that you see amongst the students that are the most successful in your programs?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are definitely some key differences there. I think part of it is just getting legitimately interested in the exam, and even in some cases for the top scores, going so far as being obsessed with the exam and really looking to dissect it and think about the exam from the test maker's perspective to get into their mindset, thinking about how did they go about laying their tricks and traps for unwary test takers? What about the wrong answer made it seem appealing in the first place? Of course, there are some wrong answers that are totally out of left field. Like if you ask, who's the president of the United States? Homer Simpson is a clear wrong answer. But I could see maybe 1% of Americans saying George Washington because he was a president at some point. And so there are different levels of tempting in different ways. Or maybe saying Tony Blair, a former prime minister of a different country, technically was a chief executive, right? And so there are different ways and different routes of or methods of reasoning you could go about to get to a tempting wrong answer. So thinking about how they lay those traps is actually really important. And then really owning the review process, not just passively looking up explanations or checking the answer key and saying, I get it, but actually going so far as to write out your review process or talk it out with a coach or a tutor or a study buddy, really taking the time, not just showing up to class and that's it. As you know, right, most of the work happens on the students' end outside of class. You got to put in the work to get the results.
Couldn't agree with you more there. I'm glad you brought up passive versus active studying. That's something I know you haven't been following my stuff for a while, but you'll see me push all the time is students and a lot of times it's not their fault, especially going from high school to college. They don't know the difference between passive and active studying. But when you're just reading and reviewing and highlighting and writing out, kind of just to no end, a lot of times that's very passive. When you're talking through something with someone and you have to actually explain it to them or teach it to them, now we're starting to go to those higher level, more active study strategies that will allow you to grasp and remember the material a lot better. So I totally agree with you there.
Yeah, you learn a lot by teaching others, and you really prove to yourself as well that you understand the material in depth. So it's a confidence boost as well. One of the latest things I've done in my courses is I've actually had students give presentations on their own review processes or how they walk through a question or even writing their own simulated exam questions to think about how the test makers lay those traps. That's not all of that is going to be for everybody. Some of that's only going to be for the top scorers. But I think really taking the time to make the most of the class sessions as well and showing up is important. Students in our programs, they have access to the resources, but other obligations can get in the way. And so carving out that study time and making it a priority is really important.